On the heels of 2016, with everything that happened and came down and is still ruminating and percolating in the new year, you know, I think with every new year, of course, there's change and there's new beginnings and new opportunities, but something about this year really struck a chord. I think that, you know, a lot of us were quite shaken up by the outcome of the election, and things seem like they're hanging a bit in a delicate balance. So I feel that more than ever now is a good time to really come together as a community and think of ways that each of us can affect change in the new year. This idea of putting together this gathering called Sacred Sundays came to me because I thought about, bless you, I thought about where did I learn the most on my journey? And what came to mind was environments like this, where we sat together in a room and we came together as a community, and collectively it was like a think tank. We brainstormed together, we thought of ideas, we had inspiration together collectively, because we can't do it alone. We need to come together as a community to really affect change. And if we can do that, it's very micro, macro. If we can do that in our own backyard, then that reverberates out into the rest of the world. So Sacred Sunday will be a monthly event, a gathering like we are here tonight doing, and having a conversation. You know, it's about the conversation. It's about talking about what moves our hearts and what weighs on our hearts and what we really are feeling inside, deep inside ourselves, and what can we do about what we're feeling? How can we feel individually that we can really make changes? I will have guests monthly, and I was very excited to begin this series with Andrew Keegan, who some of you may know, who's quite known in the community as the co-founder of Full Circle Venice, which is just up the road here. And I had the good pleasure of meeting Andrew a couple years ago. I was brought in when you had Resonate, which was really an incredible, again, a gathering of community, and I'll let Andrew explain that more in detail, of coming together and raising awareness and raising consciousness. And I was really taken by that, to be invited in by Ben Decker, who brought me in, having read an article that I wrote for Huffington Post about the Israel-Gaza outbreak, which really had me very concerned. And you know, it's things that happen that really get our attention, and we don't always want things to happen to get our attention, but sometimes that's what really implements change. So I came there, and there was this circle, this gathering, this sacred circle, if you will, and it was really great. And that's when I got to know you, and I did a couple of things thereafter, a couple of gatherings. And so I want to give you, for those of you that, and I'm sorry for my back to those of you that are behind me, I want to give you a background on Andrew more in detail. You know, don't worry, there's nothing here that is reason for concern. So Andrew, as I think you know, quite a few of you know, is an actor, entrepreneur, spiritual leader, and community advocate, fully committed to the development of an expansive social movement. Known for his roles in television shows such as Seventh Heaven and Party of Five, and for the characters he played in iconic films like Camp Nowhere and 10 Things I Hate About You. How many people have seen that movie? Okay. He is as much an activator of community as he is his own creative force, and that's so true. I love that. One of the most recognizable teenage faces in the 1990s off camera, Andrew is a fixture in the Venice art scene with a solid history of community involvement. He's organized gallery exhibits, music happenings, and other gatherings that have spotlighted the city's unique character, as well as produced several large festivals in the Los Angeles area, including Aquarius Rising, the Glen Muse Retreat at the One Love Fest, Genius Loki, and the Aries Experience. In 2014, he co-founded Full Circle, a spiritual community center that curates heart-centered events and gatherings while bringing together seekers of all backgrounds. Housed at the historic 111-year-old Rose Temple, Full Circle has hosted over 900, really? 900? Wow. That's quite something. 900 spiritual and community events since its doors opened. From meditation classes and sound healings to ecstatic dance and cacao ceremonies. Anybody been to one of those? You're all invited after. We're going up the street for cacao ceremony. To music happenings and visionary art exhibitions. Full Circle has been building spirit and community for over 2.5 years and looks forward to continuing its mission of creating a world with more love in 2017. So let's give Andrew Keegan a round of applause.
Thank you. To hear it all read out, it sounds like a lot, and it's really just an honor to be here. And I want to thank you. You participated or supported us with our campaign that we held this last year, and proud to say that we're only here in 2017 because of that and people like Ora who supported us and the larger community as well. So there's a lot of a story, as you guys can see from that, so thank you for reading that, because that kind of helps guide what I want to share today. So as you mentioned, I started very young in the entertainment industry. Is there anybody else here working in the entertainment industry? What, a room of, okay, everybody's shy. I'm the one with the microphone. I gotta say a lot of stuff. You all gotta be like, yeah, I like that. So the entertainment industry was an experience, and it was amazing. And I found a lot of success very early on. And then, like that business is, it kind of chews you up and spits you out, and there's a lot of running around and disappointment, and I really felt not in control and not satisfied with my human experience. And so that led me to Venice, which, as you guys know, Venice has got a lot of spiritual stuff happening. So I started to, discover things and really just explore. And that was something that went on for years. Like most people, had a relationship that ended, that left me in a very, unsettled state, and was at that time there was the Occupy movement. And for any of you that were here in Venice, actually, interestingly enough, our crew here today, that's where I met them. And people got together on the streets, and that's when I was first introduced to the ideas of community and, seeing all these artists, musicians, painters, people just interested in what was going on in our city. And Venice has gone through a lot. This was, I think, 5 years ago now. So this has been a really pivotal time in this particular community with all the things that are going on. But what I really recognize is the heart and the creative people in this community. So that was my first real inspiration. And also, that was a dedication. We were on the streets at the Venice Circle, and some of the folks were literally sleeping there overnight. And everybody was there. There's people that lived on the streets, and there was people that were coming from all walks of life. And I'll just kind of fast forward through, that experience. I got to a point when it really turned into that kind of activism moment, where it was the 99%, 1% concept. Actually, Chance, will you grab that? It's going off. Thank you. So that was the time when I recognized that, if we're going to do this, if we're going to have an effectuate change in this world, we can't continue being divisive. 99%, 1%, like that was something that just jumped out at me. And at the time, it was just sort of something that didn't settle right with me. So I was kind of done at that point with that momentum in that organization, or what that was, movement. And then a few years later, the opportunity came up at Full Circle, at what at the time was the Rose Temple, and I really felt like we had an opportunity to take that space and keep that space open to the community. I was also given a book called the Co-Creators Handbook. So everything that we do at Full Circle is based on co-creation, and we're actually going to be doing an event coming up in February called Living Co-Creation. The elders are coming out from Hummingbird, New Mexico, and the ideas in the book go back 30 years, but it's really lineage to tribal gatherings. And I think that for us, it's really based a lot in native practices. And that's why when we talk about things like cacao ceremonies and drum circles and circles in general, that really goes back to the Native Americans. So I'm kind of jumping all over the place, but that whole idea of community and the Co-Creators Handbook is really the basis for all that we're doing there. And it's been an incredible experience. It's been very challenging. When we started, it was very much just an inspired step in this direction without anything of a business plan, without anything of a plan at all, and very little in and around the strategy around finances. So we've had to dig really deep and work really hard to keep making one step to the next step. And that's why last year was really the moment when we reached out to the community and said, we need more people to be involved. And we really sort of set a boundary boundary up of how to move forward with the finances so that the temple can stand on its own. And I'm proud to say that we didn't know we were going to be here in 2017. We've accomplished all of this, and we're now talking to a couple investors. And so it's a success story that was a very unknown if it was going to be possible, but now we're very honored to be working in 2017 and looking at a future at Full Circle. And I'll talk more about that as we go along.
So, telling your story and the trajectory that you were on and having, we talked about your acting background and where you were and breakup. And, we all sometimes come to a point where like, okay, what next? What am I going to do next? What's my purpose? And really think consciously, what are my intentions? What do I want to do moving forward? So at that moment, my question for you is, what was the real inspiration for you? It's like sometimes something presents itself to us and we don't even really know the depth of what it is. We have this opportunity that comes up. It sounds like there were a lot of stirrings going on in Venice, which really, to use your word that you ended up using in Full Circle, resonated for you. What was going on in this environment there was stuff happening. And it seemed like it was a good synchronicity for where you were at that time in your life. But did you think that that's exactly where you saw yourself going?
I like to say this, I really don't know what I'm doing. Does anybody else feel like that? I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm okay with it. But it works. And you mentioned the word synchronicity, and I really have been able to follow that. There's a feeling, we talk about, an intention which is out there, I want to get there. But it's also that feeling of intention within. Does this feel good? But then your brain and your heart are having this whole argument of I should, but there's no money in that, but I need money to pay the rent. And so you're kind of going through this all the time in life. Where do you put your energy? And, the temple really just magnetized me to be in this position. And I really don't have some, big loft at the time, especially any expectation. In fact, I pretty much figured it was going to fail. And that had been my trajectory. I had just done a technology company in New York. In different ways, I could look at businesses that I had done. I had a bar in Venice, and different degrees of success. I don't really believe in failure. I feel like you learn from an experience. It just may not be a successful by the standards of making money and continuing. So I learned a lot of lessons for 10 years in and around the community, and really was finding myself in these situations where I was fighting. It was the police. I got into it with gang members. And there's just incidents that had happened. And the bouncers, which Kyle knows because he's my lawyer, and we had to deal with that. So I had this activism and this fight. So when Occupy came around, I was like, yeah, let's get out there. And then we were doing marches down the streets, and it just was not quite enough. I was like, so we can fight and react to everything in this world, but then what are we doing? And so that's where getting into the temple, being in these kinds of gatherings, you cannot know how powerful and how positive it is to be connecting our hearts. I mean, I could say a bunch of words. It doesn't really matter. It's you're in a moment. Like you said, we could all be watching the Oscars or the Globes tonight or watching football games, and there's a time and a place for that. I think our culture is ready to recharge and be connected. And like you said earlier, it's a mastermind. It's a master heart connection in these rooms. And like you said, over 900 events, all of them with a different intention. We have events that are focused on relationships. We have an authenticity workshop. We have EFT, which is emotional freedom technique. We are mechanical in a sense, and so we've got to continue to tune our system. And if we allow other things to tune our system, like TV or people, that's why you're going to feel out of sorts and out of whack. Right. So it's a place, really a foundational space for people to come and explore different practices.
Right. And I think that those environments, the whole notion of community's been around, it's an ancient, it's a tribal, I think that we have a deep yearning to connect. That's what we want to do on the planet, is we want to connect to one another. We're not meant to be isolated. We're not meant to be, just by ourselves,
Interesting question just for the room. Does anybody feel like they're in a particular community? I mean, do you, in your life, because like, obviously with us or Full Circle, we talk about it, even it's somewhat hard to define, but I think in this world it's easy to be in our lives and we have jobs, but is there like a community that you're involved in? Anybody add a thought of yeah, well, you're at Full Circle. I know a few of you at Full Circle, so even just...
I mean, honestly, like, I have a few communities
right.
that I'm involved in, and I can say I have some women that I dance with, and that's a community that's really, really powerful and strong. And then the girls that I work with at my shop, and I feel like if you kind of look at your life, like there's a few communities, hopefully.
Yeah.
Because I know there's been times where I didn't feel connected to anything or anyone, and I was really, really lonely. And it's like such an important part of just, I think, the human experience. Like, we're obviously put here with each other for a reason, and to have that connection with community and support, it lifts us all up.
And that's really the basis of it, just to be, as we've said recently, safe place to gather. Like to know that you can come there without there being a dogma or an expectation. It's just a place where you're going to connect with good people.
Yeah, and that there isn't, the whole idea of it being, people they reach out oftentimes to communities that are denominational. And so to have an environment where it is non-denominational, and it doesn't matter who you are, where you come from, what color your skin is, what your beliefs are, what your socioeconomic bracket is, that coming together, which again, when I say the macro, micro, it's like if we can get along within a community, then we can bring that out into the world. Unless we can figure it out in this type of an environment, which you've put into motion with Full Circle, how do you figure out the problems of the rest of the world? We have to start with ourselves. We have to start with self, move it out to community, move it out to a global community. Exactly. Do you know?
Exactly. There are these structures that already exist that just aren't working, and we can be mad at them, and we can react to them, and we can protest and fight and be activists, or we can create solutions, or things like Full Circle, or communities that you were speaking of that may exist. Maybe it's a crystal shop somewhere in some other place that doesn't necessarily have as much access to what we're referring to as consciousness, but really, you could deduce it to love. I mean, a loving environment that is devoid of an agenda, because the world we live in, it's like you either making money or or making money. Those are like the two things that drive us. It's very rare, other than say family gatherings, that you go out and you intentionally become involved in a community. And I think that that's what we see is more needed than ever. We started 2.5 years ago. There was not this political situation that exists now that is seeming to emphasize that we as a community, a global community, but people in our country right now specifically having to connect within their local spheres. Right. And I think that's really what seems to be coming up a lot, and that's the space we want to fulfill.
Right, and I think that when we gauge how we are doing in a community or just in our country, and we are aware of that there's dissent, and we're aware that what's escalating is hatred and racism, and these are red flags for us. When we start to see that on the heels of an election, we start to see these concerning transitions that are happening in our country, again, it's a greater need for community. It's a greater need to come together. It's a greater need to problem solve. Do you know? And that's where we do it. We do it together. We cannot do this alone. And people have really expressed that a lot, at the end of last year. I'm sure many of you feel that way, and you've heard it. You're in an environment where you hear people tell you things a lot, that they were very concerned about the state of the country and where we're at and the environment and what's going on, without making this a political evening per se, but that, there are those concerns, and sometimes you don't know where to go with those concerns. You don't know really what the solutions are, and you don't want to turn on the news and think that that's where you're supposed to get the information.
We talk about who's heard shadow work, like along the way. So culturally, this is the shadow. This has existed. These ideas and these feelings, they've just been repressed.
Right.
And so I see a great opportunity because the system that exists is clearly not working. So what does that leave us with? An option? Either be upset and react, or proactively do what each of us can do. I can tell you this, that when this started, this was a literally pipe dream, and I had very little, as I was mentioning earlier, of a plan or anything. But I was just determined, and I'm not any different than anybody else in this room. I really, sure, we have this background that you can read, but at the time, I'm just a guy living in Venice with enough to do something really silly. In fact, I'll even just kind of open up a little bit. The first check that went to Full Circle Rent was a settlement check from this incident. So it was a very transitional moment in my life, and I, almost ceremonially or whatever, like took this money that was to do with this incident and began. And along the way, the challenges, it cannot explain how difficult it was. And at times having people, which I consider elders, telling me, you got to know when to cut bait and run, because things weren't making sense. The rent doubled after 6 months. We had a new owner come in. I mean, even now, our building has been for sale for 10 months. We're on a month-to-month lease. I mean, these are the most unsettled circumstances, and we do the most difficult kind of business. We deal with people
Andrew.
and staff and events, so they're unreliable. You never know if something's going to work. So all of that has just really fortified this organization.
So that leads into one of the questions I have for you. So with the obstacles that you faced, which it sounds like you faced them pretty early on, and they continue to present themselves to you.
Oh, yeah, they just got harder.
Right, it just got harder. So when we're facing obstacles and we're facing difficulties, what for you made you not to decide to cut bait? And
Well, it goes back to that idea that it's irrational, but there's something I just got to do this. I just got to see it through.
Why? What is it? Tell us what it is.
It's really
what's driving you.
It's a feeling. It's honestly just a heart-centeredness of this. To everybody, doesn't really make sense. And then at the same time, I did have a community of people that believed in this, and some that are here that supported that decision, even if certain people may look at it not as a rational idea. We figure that no matter what, energy continues going forward. It'll evolve into something else. If it's not here, it'll be somewhere else. So let's keep pushing and let's keep going. And that is something that is what we all deal with. Is this the right thing to be doing? Should I be doing something else? And this is, I think, where the practices are so important. The practices of meditation, the practices of coming together and learning, and that really, that I think is a driving force. Just a deep trust in moving forward.
Yeah. So let me ask you a question about a community within a community. You created Full Circle, and that became its own community within the community of Venice. How did the community around you respond or receive the community that you were creating?
It's a trick question. Well, let's just say right off the bat, the media went at it. They had a field day. This actor starts a spiritual center. It's a cult. So that was pretty much our first article.
The media,
The
that's how
media
they
just
responded.
wrote it up as, in fact, they talked about praying to crystals and all. Sensationalized the story to, obviously sell online advertisement. But the actual community of Venice, mixed feelings. People, because of that article, had a perspective on this being something that it totally was not. And I now can look back and kind of laugh at it, but at the time, when I speak of challenges, imagine being on the corner of Hampton and Rose and pretty much feeling like like a big joke. And honestly, I didn't have much more to go on than, I might not be here in 6 months, because when this building sells, as it did, it sold for $4.6 million, and they doubled our rent. And I went home and cried. I was like, "You're so stupid, so stupid. You just blew at the time, I don't know, $100,000 on this, and it's not going to work." And I had to live with that. And it just so happened that one of the gals in the office who was working with us reached out to someone who was his family was a large philanthropic family, and went and hung out one night. And he was really into meditation. He was I think it was Shinzen Young is the guy that he was working with, and he said, "It's got to stay open, and I want to do meditation there." And he wrote a check for $20,000, which only got us like another month, but it was a sign, a check, a donation. So let's keep going. And that was only 6 months in, and we're 2.5 years in now. So that those are the kind of things that have happened over and over and over throughout this process, and at the same time left us in that really unknown, unsettled state. And for anybody that's in an unsettled state, whether it's rent, living, I mean, all of that, I will divulge a little bit more information that throughout this process, I really had to sacrifice on all the financial levels. So my car was put to rent in the first 6 months, so I haven't had a car in 2 years. I live in a converted garage to be able to do more business from where I live. So there's a lot of those little details that are kind of interesting to
Right.
to look at.
And I think that, what I think a lot of us can relate to is what drives us forward. Sometimes when we are feeling despondent, or we're feeling that there's really nothing to hold on to, there's something. Sometimes you can't even really give it words. You don't know what it is that moves us forward. It could be a calling. It could be something greater and bigger than us. I feel that it's a soul language. It's something that just keeps pushing us out to do what we need to do. And if we look at it from just, practical purposes, like how am I going to pay the rent, and why am I doing this, and all the whys that we ask ourselves, the thing that has kept you there has been something that you feel very committed to, it sounds like, and believed in the vision of creating this community.
Uh-oh, they're here for me. Gotta go. You asked me a question a little bit earlier in regards to that about the ideas, and I've listened to so many amazing teachers along the way, and something always stuck out at me is we look at things as a problem, but within the problem, within whatever that is, there's an opportunity and there's a solution. So it's really a matter of perspective, and for me, there was that drive to just, and guys have this a lot, right? It's like a challenge, like, I can figure that out, or I'll fix it. And so it's like some of that just masculine energy, and also having this community of people that have, because it's a co-creative model, there's other decision makers sitting together, and so it's not just me. This is, I guess, sort of a little bit different in that sense, is we really do lean on, in this circumstance, we do have a board, but there's also a larger group that works. So we all kind of decision make together.
So there are obstacles, as we know, that life presents that to us. And again, there's something in each of us that moves us forward out, and that's personal to us. The flip side of that is, what are the rewards? What have you seen that you go, yeah, it's worth it. This has been worth it, and here's why. Do you know, there must have been some wonderful, you talk about 900 events, and I'm sure I've participated, I've done workshops there, and they've been lovely and special, and people have gotten a lot out of the things that you bring into that environment. So what would you say are some of the real highlights of when you can say to yourself, yeah, you know what, this is right. I'm doing exactly what I should be doing right now.
This morning we had a really beautiful guest speaker, Jessica Winterstern, and her mother is endured or is dealing with early stages of Alzheimer's. And I was just coming in, and she had made a live stream video about her experience as a speaker today. And we are the space to provide that opportunity where she just gushed for 5 minutes. And I mean, I had the same conversation with her, a version of it. And that just tickles me, just to be able to be giving this opportunity by what I'm passionate about. And she's specifically taking her mom in today to a home, and so she's got this weight, and she was talking about resistance to it, and she tried to get out of it, and I called her and I said, no, this is going to be great. We reassured her, and even today on the stage she was talking about how nervous she was before we started, and I was like, well, I'm nervous about talking later today, and I got to do that, so let's just be nervous together. And so, you know, we can all help each other, and we have this space because of all of the people. And I think that, you know, to continue answering the question, just really seeing how many people have had transformational experiences. I can't tell you how many times on a Sunday morning people will come in and probably like some of you guys, like, all right, I don't know what they're going to say here. It's kind of weird. I don't even know if I want to be here. And then by the end, everybody's smiling and talking and engaged, and it's nothing I can really put my finger on. It's an environment, and that's really what this is. There's an emerging culture. And we also, the reason we refer to it as Activate is because we come together, but we want to set an intention. We want to hold each other accountable for what you're here. You can just come and be an audience member in a movie, but here we want you to be involved. So we either want you to participate with us or do whatever it is out in the world, but activating that that love within and that sensation to move forward in whatever it is you're doing.
Right.
And that's really what this foundational space is about.
I mean, what came to my mind is that if there were these types of communities everywhere, and everybody was in their environments creating acceptance and tolerance and really nurturing love and appreciation for each other, and I just had this vision of, like, it was happening in every country.
We have the same vision. Awesome.
Oh my gosh, this is wonderful.
Yeah, that is the
Yeah.
vision, and even just another.
The world would be in a much better
so
state.
now going into the idea of the path of church, and the reason that we decided to innovate that idea, because they do have a lot of real estate around the world, a lot of money around the world, and we see moving through a path where that can happen faster, and that's why I feel doing it this way is the unique opportunity, really innovating the space. Millennial generation is coming up. They are, I mean, on computers, they're so fast. And so how do you bring them back to a certain reality? And that's where I think we can provide that kind of space. And we are looking at this as a large idea, a large vision, and around communities everywhere. So that is the vision.
Maybe it's setting up communities elsewhere, do you know, which is maybe not being so attached to the space. I know you've had difficulties with, you know, what's going to happen with the future of Full Circle and the monies and all the thing that keeps a place.
Oh, it's not. I'm over it now.
Good.
It'll
It's
work
good
itself out. We're going to be there.
Because it's the vision that you can take anywhere.
Yeah.
Do you know?
Yeah.
You can't. The vision will not die. The vision stays alive as long as we keep it alive.
I'd say it's more than vision. It's even an intention, and it's when I say environment, I mean, you know, we move through this world carrying, you know, what do they talk about? You've got an aura. How about that? little plug, aura. I've got an aura too. So you go around and you influence the world in different ways. And so as a community, that's then a collective wisdom, a collective aura. And so, yeah, we want to see people come together and feel into that and, you know, expand on that in different cities.
How do you when you're involved in, because I know you've done a lot of things in the environment, in Full Circle. They have been, focused on wellness, focused on health, the arts, music, and political activism. Do you know you're a big supporter of Bernie Sanders? You had events there, the Dakota pipeline, the Access pipeline. I don't know all the things you could talk about. You could explain it more yourself. And then I know that there was a night or a day that I was supposed to do a workshop at Full Circle, and you had to cancel because of, and you can speak more about that, about the homeless, he was homeless, I believe, man, the African-American man who got killed. And that really, I know, moved you deeply, and you got very involved. How does getting involved in something like that, and you can tell that story, what did you see come of that?
I mentioned it a little bit earlier. I had an incident where I was targeted by the police, and it's all behind me now, but there were 50 cops that showed up while I was doing a charity event, and I innocently went down thinking, yeah, I'll talk to you. And I'll never forget what she said to me. It was a sergeant, and I didn't know where I was going and who I was talking to. And she said to me, you need to shut down your party. And of course, it's like 5:30, it's 4th of July. And she said, and I debated with her, and she said, you need to shut down your party. I'm a police officer, you're not human. And I was like, yeah, that's what I did. I said, what? Can you say that again? Like, I'm at this command post, and she literally said it again, and I remember, and I don't ever tell this story, so just it's sort of feels like relevant. And that was my first lesson and one of the things that I think when we talk about what inspired me, I have, and the next thing I know, I'm being thrown down, and I have 15 cops. There's throwing me and arresting me or putting me in handcuffs. And that was for it was Heal the Bay, Fallen Whistles, and one other, Stoked, which is mentoring kids through action sports. So I was doing, at that time, a charity event. Of course, I didn't have a permit, but you can't get a permit. We had done it 10 years. I hired 4 off-duty sheriff officers. I didn't know that sheriffs and police don't get along. So, talk about politics. I walked into something that I didn't understand. What I understood, and this was before all of these issues we've had come to light with police, I realized that this is one of the reasons why community and harmonizing community is so important. So yes, when Brendan Glenn was shot and killed on Westminster, I think I got triggered by that, and I could see from his friends that they were upset, of course, and hurting, and we decided to have a memorial. And my intention is to bring people together. So we actually had Captain Carranza of the LAPD come, several other of the friends of Brendan's. We brought different healers and different musicians. I think Peter Harper was there, Mikey was there. And we did a all-day memorial, just honoring his life. And I do apologize. I canceled on her. Was like, I'm sorry. We weren't so well.
I completely understand.
We weren't so well organized at the time, so didn't
well,
have calendars.
It was an emotional time.
Very emotional. Very upset,
Yeah.
and it occurred again. Even more recently, there was another young man who was shot by a security in a hotel situation, and his name was Shakespeare. And so this that had been happening all across the country is now happening in our backyard, and I felt like we're the only people to be able to do something. The sort of follow-up on that whole story is that the family settled. They paid out $4 million, and along the way, what's the top, Mr. Beck, Captain Beck? No, what's the top guy? He's the chief of police. Yes, sorry. Chief of police saw the video, and they've never released the video, and he made some comments just alluding to, obviously it was wrong. He was shot in the back. So anyway, these things happen, and we did our best to, again, bring people together. That actually leads me to another event an event that we have coming up January 22nd. Alon is our guest at Activate, and he was previously a police officer, and he's got a program called Director of Happiness, and we're working together on bringing more of that to LAPD locally. So again, just trying to get in it all and do what we can to bring people together.
Is there a way to include them somehow? I did a meditation today at Hotchkiss Park, which I'd never been to before. It was really lovely. And one of the women that is she organizes Yoga for the People, LA, and her father, I think she said, was a police officer. So it's the idea of reaching out to people like that woman. Sounds like she needs to meditate, to get people who what seems so foreign or woo-woo to them, to bring them in, if you can, into the mix, if that's at all possible, to maybe they could be a part of the community in some way, invite them in, as opposed to viewing them as the enemy.
Of course. No. Everyone is human. So we I learned that in that moment. I was like, no, I think we're all pretty much human. I was really upset, by the way, for a few weeks after that. It was embarrassing, like I got my whole thing shut down. Came in and they like stormtroopers. They cleared the whole place out. Literally 50 like helicopters.
Would you have done something differently? Would you have done something in the way that you communicated or reached out when you said you got triggered when he, when he got shot, when Glenn?
Yeah, well, I allow this human experience to be exactly what it is. So I look back and I think it's important to take from experiences. And as I said, I had a lot more feisty energy in me through this period of time that I've...
Well, now that you're a dad,
yeah,
you still feel feisty?
Ooh. Okay, so I'm going to tell you a quick story. Well, here's the thing. Everything that's within us is for a reason. We can learn from everything at any time. Now, if you keep doing the same thing over and over, then maybe you want to look at that. Last night, for example, we were at the mall, which I never go to. I don't know if you guys had heard what happened at the mall last night. Yeah. So there with a gift card, which I was like, I got to use this. And Arista had come in just to get some shoes. I got some shoes for the baby. So she was like, I'm going to go look at another store in the mall. Like, no problem. I'm going to try these shirts on and check out, and we'll go. And so 10 minutes goes by. I get to the line, and all of a sudden, psst, I see this couple acting weird and start running. And I'm like, what the heck? And then two more people are running. And then I hear the screaming from the mall. And I just went, oh my God. Arista and I are in the mall. People are screaming. We've seen all of the images of what's going on in the world. I threw my stuff and started running. Now, I was analyzing it afterwards. In that moment, it was just fight or flight. Now, I'm running in the mall as people scared are running away, but my father and my child and my mother are in the mall, so I'm not going to run that way. I've got to go find them. Fortunately, within a couple of minutes of me just running through the mall and seeing mobs of people running and just still going at it, not knowing what to expect at all, she texted me that she was held up in the Foot Locker. And so I kind of at least was knew she was safe, but didn't know what was going on. And again, the question just having to do with there was fear, there was anger, there was fight, and in that moment it was appropriate. And in every moment it is there for those reasons. And so I just want to be clear that I appreciate all of my experiences and they all have led me to a more peaceful place, but you just never know when something is sort of the exception. Now, I drive my car like an old man, okay? I'm not doing the whipping around anymore, but in that particular moment, it was...
survival.
Yeah, survival mode.
Yeah, exactly. So let me ask you to go back to full circle here. What do you think Full Circle's most important contribution has been to the community, to what you've created there? What would you say you've really done that you feel the most proud of?
We're gonging. We do gongs.
The most proud of what?
Well, that we proved this space, this experience, that anything, is possible. I think it's one of the most impossible ideas or projects in so many ways. And so the fact that we've been able to move through all that we've moved through. And for me, obviously, my daughter, because she really very much came through this experience. It's one thing leads to the next, but she very obviously came through the temple. And so now, to be a father and to be existing in this life, feeling accomplished, even considering everything, and really the community, the people that come in and have, written testimonies. In fact, we had a beautiful testimony from Lana over here just a few days ago, and thank you so much. It's such an I don't want to say relief, but it's just an honor to know that people appreciate it.
And that you're touching people's lives. That people are genuinely being touched by this experience.
And just that we've been able to be that message that it's you, though. It's the people. You make the choice. We're just a space, and we're just having conversations, and we're just doing our community building.
Right.
And to know that people genuinely, as this testimony or the one today, being able to recognize that power within, because that's how the world is going to be a better place. And really, it's this world. This is the most beautiful world we could live in, the one we're in right now. And so the best way for that to be continuing for others is, again, to expand and to move forward in that motion.
What do you want to see moving forward in 2017 with Full Circle? What would you like to see have happen with it?
A lot of crystals in the temple, like that one.
You want to create a Mystic Journey environment? I think you've got it. Except you don't have the books.
I like crystals. We are moving into securing the temple, and then doing what this spiritual startup can do. It can do crystals. It can do books. It can do full programming membership. I just want to see it. I see it as a mecca for what this emerging culture is calling in right now, and just representing that, and then expanding.
And how do you think it can make a difference this year? 2017, it's a new year, new opportunity. There's a lot on the plate of what's going on politically, environmentally. Again, is how can we, each and every one of us, be a part of the change, that Gandhi said, be a part of the change you want to see in the world. How do you have this environment, you have this hub, you have this center that draws people in. How do you see it changing it up in 2017?
We've seen a lot of ceremony. We talk about cacao ceremony, which again is a chocolate ceremony, but we've also done several water wheel ceremonies. There's one coming up on the calendar on January 15th, or 16th. Is it the 16th? I think it's whichever the Sunday is. And we're also organizing that same day, 5 to 8. There's a farm in downtown, and there's a group coming together to actively, plan a way to sustain this farm. So, really continuing prayer in the way that we do, continuing ceremony in the way that we do, because these things are actually more powerful than any amount of money that we can raise. They bring people together, and the power is within us. So in 2017, really, by us securing this space, only inspiring people more to do those things that they're passionate about, because that's really the product, is people and inspiration. And so those are, I think, the great accomplishments of 2017.
Right, great.
That's on the vision board.
It's on the vision board, great. So I'd like to read you some quotes that I put together on what community means to some thought leaders that I thought was really resonated. We must become bigger than we have been, more courageous, greater in spirit, larger in outlook. We must become members of a new race, overcoming petty prejudice, owing our ultimate allegiance not to nations, but to our fellow men within the human community. Haile Selassie. In every community, there is work to be done. In every nation, there are wounds to heal. In every heart, there is the power to do it. Marianne Williamson. It is not more bigness that should be our goal. We must attempt, rather, to bring people back to the warmth of community, to the worth of individual effort and responsibility, and of individuals working together as a community to better their lives and their children's future. Speaking of your daughter, Robert Kennedy. When I am with a group of human beings committed to hanging out in there through both the agony and the joy of community, something you've experienced, the joy and the agony, I have a dim sense that I am participating in a phenomenon for which there is only one word: glory. M. Scott Peck. I think true success is intrinsic. It's love, it's kindness, it's community. Tom Shadyac. Yeah, another Venice guy, right?
Apparently he was interested in buying the temple. I heard.
Yeah? Okay. A community is like a ship. Everyone ought to be prepared to take the helm. Henrik Ibsen. We cannot seek achievement for ourselves and forget about progress and prosperity for our community. Our ambitions must be broad enough to include the aspirations and needs of others for their sakes and for our own. Cesar Chavez. With all things and in all things, we are relatives. Native American proverb. And this one, which I put together. Community is spiritual family. It is a much wider extension of my birth family, but my love, respect, and compassion should be as much for my fellow man as it is for those I am connected to biologically. We all have a shared lineage, and it is this world of which we are all its children. It doesn't matter the color of our skin, our race, or religion. We are all one and can function this way as a greater community if we put love and peace first. And I thought you might want to share your thoughts in just this sort of extemporaneous kind of way of what community means to Andrew Keegan.
We have on the side of the temple, we are all one. We've often had this little slogan, it's a we thing, which is, and with that I would even, as you were talking, I kind of had a feeling, I'm like, oh, what's the quote, Andrew? What's the quote? But yeah, it's a we thing, and living co-creation is as simple as it is, that's as simple as I really feel that it can be. We've just got to start really recognizing people around us and what it is and the ways that we can work together and allow ourselves to see beyond the many problems and conflicts and see all those things as opportunities and do the work. Like, I'll tell you, this was a lot of, it's not work like you get paid. I've never been paid. In fact, I've created incredible debt. It's just what I feel that I can do to, provide for the larger community. And I'm really, at this point, feeling accomplished. And I just would want that for people that have ideas and feelings about doing something that's outside of the comfort zone. Go outside the comfort zone. Just go for it.
So you would encourage people.
I would encourage it, and
do
every
that.
time someone's like, "Well, I go." If you feel that there's a light in that direction, go that direction.
And not to get discouraged by the obstacles and the difficulties, but to keep forging ahead.
You will amaze yourself
Yes.
at how the synchronicity works, because you are opening up the space for a miracle to happen, and it does every time, especially if it's the right direction. Just try it.
Well, I think you're aligned. I think when you're aligned with your truth and you're aligned with your passion and you're aligned with your calling, miracles happen. Because you're in alignment to allow for miracles to happen. You're not resisting a miracle to happen. So it sounds like you've been in alignment with that, and even though you've been tossed around here and there, you still went back and allowed yourself to get back on the horse again. So it takes being aligned to do that. You can't ride the horse unless you're aligned. Right?
Got to find the balance, and we talk about just where there is the harmony in the experience. But again, it's been, it's been dynamic. So be prepared, as you said.
Yeah.
There was the ship quote. You should be prepared to take the helm.
Yeah, exactly. And that it shouldn't always be on your shoulders.
That's why you have community.
Right. And I think you really impart that to the community, that it's like we're all a part of that, again, to emphasize that it's not just being, putting the expectation on the leader, on the head of the community, on the guru, on the president. It's like we all have to take responsibility.
During Occupied, we talked about this is a leaderful movement. Leaderful movement. And then that's really, as you were back to kind of jump back to an answer in what I see for 2017, that we continue living co-creation, supporting all of the leaders that are coming through full circle, such as yourself, to be more in resonance with this that's happening, that we're all being called to do. This is just one space, but
Right.
we need to be doing this everywhere.
Right, exactly.
And that's how we deal with what we're all so afraid of. Fear is for when you think that there's a disaster. It's not a place to live from. And the place to live from is love. And that means, again, every day, when you're driving, when you're, look someone in the eyes. I mean, these little things that we miss along the day are opportunities. And that's where, again, that's a practice.
Yeah, mindfulness, being present, being in the present moment, and really looking around and being very
Alive.
well, it's the most real moment you're in, that you're alive in this moment. So if we can take that into all the moments of our lives. We've got a couple of minutes left before this is over, is to, let's do a meditation together. Let's drop those thoughts that we have percolating, because thoughts have energy, as we know, and depending on what we're talking about, we can start to feel that we've got energy around it. Thoughts create feelings, create behavior, create reality. That's what I say in my book, Says Who. So you want to know what your thoughts are about, and you want to take a close look at them because they got something to tell you. And they want you to take them higher, because you know what? You're creating your thoughts. You are the creator and master of your inner dialogue, which ultimately creates your reality. So on that note, sitting, feeling the space of your aliveness, of your beingness, of being in this sacred room with your fellow spiritual travelers that we have all come together on this particular eve, on this journey. We find ourselves here at Mystic Journey Bookstore as our refuge. We've come into the warmth of this sacred room, and we are here together. And feel your breath, your aliveness, the breath that is eternal, the breath that has no identity, it has no opinion, it has no attitude. It's just your breath. It's your life force, and it is exquisite. It is divine, and it is keeping you moving in your life as you, as the individual, unique, extraordinary, divine, spiritual being who is in this body for as long as you inhabit it, and you want to make it something special. It's your journey, and you can create whatever you want it to be. So what's it going to be in 2017? What are you going to create? What are you going to manifest? Whatever you hold in your mind's eye, you can create that outside of it in the three-dimensional, or multi-dimensional, I should say, universe. You are a star. And we know that when we look up into the heavens, what do we see? We see the brightness of all those stars just mirroring back to us who we are. We are that. We are illuminated. We are radiant. We are pure energy of light. And just think about, how do you want to communicate your star? How do you want to communicate your light in the moment to moment reality of your life? Now's the time to let it shine so brightly. Now's the time to let it be as bright as it's ever been. Your star can be as radiant as anything that you can imagine. And it can shine so brightly in the cosmos of life that we are all a part of. Let's join together. Let's make this an amazing year. We can create something really miraculous. And I reach out to all of you because you're part of my star galaxy. You're in it with me. You are shining with me. I'm not shining alone. I'm sharing the cosmic space with you. So I want you to shine as brightly as you possibly can, and to go out into your days, each and every one of them, and shine your light as bright as you possibly can. And what you're going to do is you're going to shine your light on another star that might be sleeping. And maybe that star's forgotten that it's a star, and it needs your help to remind it to shine brightly too. So that's your fellow spirit star. That's part of the collective that we are all a part of. So shine, radiate, do it wherever you go, and do it with whoever you come into contact with, so that when you leave the room before them, they're going to feel your light. It's going to warm them up. It's going to help them remember what maybe they have forgotten, that they're a light too. So each and every one of us needs to shine. And each and every one of us is going to light up the world, because it needs it. It needs to be lit up more than it's ever been lit up before. And we're going to show Mother Nature that we're here to love her up and to help her and to respect her and to honor her for embracing us in her gorgeousness for so long, her oceans and her sky and the air that we breathe. It's time to honor that and to really be in gratitude. So we're going to shine, and we're going to be grateful. And we're going to go out into the world and be the miracles that each and every one of us is. Take a deep breath in. Let it fill you with so much light and love. And a big exhalation out. And you know what? Let that good energy out and let it reverberate out into the world. your energy is going to move out into the world and continue creating more energy that is going to light up the universe. Be in love. When you're ready, open your eyes. Thank you, Andrew, for being my first guest for Sacred Sunday and setting this ship out into the cosmos.